Gukesh has made 3 moves in a row, which at first we were kind of giggling, and with his final move, giggles are about to stop. He played bishop a7, we've seen this, and I was after king b1 saying he clearly is intending to play b5. I'm pretty sure bishop a7 was played with the intention of playing b5, and then I guess he no longer liked this position. So the bishop went back to b6, which is not something you see very often. White has a bunch of improving moves here. In fact, something like a2, a3 is very useful. It was maybe even a bit stronger than knight a5, but knight a5 also makes sense. And here, Gukesh decided, okay, I can no longer wait. Of course, rook a b8 is available, and it's probably the best move in the position. And it's definitely stronger than what he's done, because c7, c5, I mean, I can understand him trying to break free. Unfortunately for him, the d takes c6, en passant, b takes c6, and MVL is still thinking, or not anymore, and a very natural move, queen c3, after which both c6 and d6 are already hanging. And your entire position, honestly, is on the verge of collapse. And the evaluation on my screen is plus 2.5 in a position with equal material, which is normally not a good indicator. No. And like, none of these things are missable either. D takes c6. Like, of course, you cannot allow black to just play c5 unpunished. Bishop will come to d8. Black will actually start normalizing his position. So d6, you see that, and queen c3 is also by far the most natural move in the position. Attacking the pawn on c6, making
attacking the pawn on d6.
Yeah, I guess maybe what you can miss is that after rook a c8, rook d6, bishop a5, queen a5, knight c4 is completely lost after simply this exchange sacrifice. And then, once again, reminding the viewers, there is a pawn on h6, which means that
rook d7.
Yeah, let's say you play queen f7. White can simply continue collecting. But this king is so unsafe that it would be an unpleasant position with the pawn on h2. I still feel like probably white would be doing quite well. But with the pawn on h6, it's just completely lost. But the thing is, even if I don't take on d6, even if, let's say, I play knight c4, rook c4, this is still awful.
Yeah.
This is still completely awful, because your king is unsafe, everything is hanging. Like, all 3 of these things are going to be under attack, because the rook will probably eventually land on a4. It loses by force, but even if it didn't lose by force, it's still not going to be great. I guess what black is hoping for, and what we are stopping with queen c3 in particular, and then again, both of us strong moves here, rook d6 and knight c4, they're preventing d6, d5. So if, let's say, I play b2, b3 here, and black gets to play d6, d5, you're still worse, but you're maybe beginning to hope. But yeah, there are very comfortable ways of stopping that. And in the current position, d6, d5, knight takes c6, just wins a healthy pawn, because all of your all of your pawns are losing to knight takes c5, because f7 is also hanging.
Do you think maybe he wants to just take on a5 and then defend the pawns? Yes, he's definitely worse. That black squared bishop is very strong.
That is
how does he defend the pawn?
You don't really describe it as worse, though.
Hanging, right? So maybe rook e6.
Rook e6.
I'll throw in b3 just to kind of demonstrate that I don't need to win it move by move. And then the queen will return to c3. This rook will swing over to a4. And
now let's dominate the whole.
Yeah, eventually I will create one thread and everything will collapse, is my feeling here. Like, one thread somewhere will just destroy this completely. Now, this is a very, very odd game being played by the world champion. And honestly, the second half of yesterday was also not great. He is not having a particularly comfortable couple of rounds.
I just wanted to say in that position that you and Peter reached. It's the funny thing about the chessboard is that the long diagonals are like magnets to the bishops. The bishops just love long diagonals. And if you gave me this position as white, one of the first things that would go through my mind is bishop comes back to c1, the bishop comes to b2, and yes, I push the knight away, and I give you a checkmate.
Among other things, this is a very strong plan here.
And that magnetic, and I'm with you, Peter. You don't necessarily have to win the pawn right away. It's just the position is just not good. When you think about his moves, bishop a7, followed by bishop b6, followed by this latest move, bishop c5, it looks like Gukesh just is having a very, very bad day, Peter.
Today has not been good, and just as an indication of how bad this position is for black, after a2, a3, I'm kind of struggling to name anything proactive black can do, and white will eventually, I guess the biggest threat eventually will be knight b3. You can also, machine pretty much always suggests swinging the rook from h4 to a4, which looks strange, but when you think about it for 3 seconds, it's not doing very much here, whereas on a4 it will put additional pressure on the black queen side, and also sidestep some bishop f2 ideas, meaning that when we eventually attack the bishop on c5, which we will, it will not have any jumps with tempo. And it's completely busted. Like you don't often see positions with equal material and the engine saying +3.
Yeah, and that pawn on d6 too nicely. I mean, you're
D6, C6, A6.
Your
all of
king
them.
is weak.
Everything.
Your king is weak. Your pieces are in poor squares. Your entire queen side is busted. It's not a shock.
But bishop c5, the most obvious move to my eyes, Peter, is knight b3, and then you're kind of forcing the rook to go where it
Yeah, but
wants.
black does get to play d6, d5, which is the one small dream you have here.
Okay, so there is something to be said finally, because I just didn't even see any reasons why I would find myself attracted to bishop c5. You know, more I think about it, the immediate rook a4 just
He
sidestep.
played
and
it,
guess
MVL
what?
just played the best move in the position.
Yeah, you just sidestep this bishop f2, and you say, by the way, you can't play d6, d5
No.
because your bishop will suddenly be hanging. What do you do for a move?
I can't find a good move for black.
I mean,
Maybe rook
suggestions are
e6, but
rook. Sorry.
rook e6 maybe. If we're
Yes. Okay.
hunting for something to go somewhere.
Well, we are anticipating knight b3, so we're defending the pawn,
Yeah.
and now
We can continue improving with white, or we can start cashing in, like knight b3, knight d4 comes to mind, or, I mean, many other things as
knight b3. Probably the bishop has to drop back.
well. Yeah, let's go knight d4 here.
You know, suddenly it's like everything is
Yeah, rook
beautifully
a8.
coordinating. Beautifully coordinating.
I'm pretty sure there's something that wins faster, but
This isn't bad.
yeah, as far as evaluations go, I'm pretty certain I know what the evaluation is here.
Yeah, we just look at that pawn
By
on
the way,
h6.
Gukesh also kind of in time trouble. He has
Uh-oh.
10 minutes for next 15 moves, and his position is very difficult to play. His position is just getting
Progressively
worse.
worse.
Somehow getting worse. Yeah, you wouldn't think it's possible, but it's getting
And
worse.
materially, it's still completely equal.
Rook a4, very, very good move from MVL. Asking Duda, what are you going to do about your d6 pawn? When I play knight b3, d6 pawn is hanging? Well, Gukesh has played queen c7.
Look at that eval bar. It's almost to the 8th rank.
Yeah.
Oh, you,
It's almost queening, yeah.
a3, rook a7.
Oh, he's stalemated. I understand
my
this looks
goodness.
ugly, but he's completely stalemated.
Oh
and
my
now if the
goodness.
bishop f4, yeah, it's now going to finally collapse. We play knight b3 next move, and it starts
start
to just
taking
crumble.
pieces.
Yeah.
Down to 5 minutes as well.
Queen b6
Queen
played.
b6.
Knight b3 is winning. b4 is winning as well. b4 kind of wins a piece, pretty much.
b4 wins
yeah.
a piece because
Because we're
d7
threatening queen b3 check and then b takes c5.
Right.
It's actually a
So-
direct threat to the bishop.
Oh, you
So
want the queen
B-
b3 check, right?
Yeah.
So b4, you think, well, you can't take my bishop, and that is true. But
For
I
now.
can play queen b3 with a check, and then I'll take the bishop.
Yeah.
And then if the bishop moves, then I'll
Then
take
rook
the
takes
pawn.
c6 is pretty good, yeah.
Knight is hanging. This pawn is hanging. b4 wins a pawn, and,
And
also
if you don't
knight
want to
b3.
spoil the pristine structure, knight b3 is also completely winning.
Thank you. Yeah, that also
Completely
was
winning.
just complete strategic masterpiece here by
Do we
MVL.
think they're even going to reach the time control? Because they still have 13 moves to go.
Unlikely.
No, this is
So
just
CMBL's about to make a move. I think he's going to play b4. Maybe knight b3, just to not...
Well, something on the queen side wins.
Yeah.
yeah.
Most moves on the queen side pretty much end the game here. And also 24 minutes against 5. But you can give Gukesh 2.5 hours here, and the evaluation will not shift one iota.
Knight b3, one of two excellent moves, and it's very, very rare that you have a situation of dominance where you're winning on the king side thanks to the h6 pawn. The structure in the center is terrible, collapsing. And by the way, you're actually worse on the queen side. So across the entirety of the battlefield, MVL has all but cinched this
Something
game.
happened to Gukesh when he started moving that bishop around back to a7, b6.
A7,
That's
b6.
when it all went
Yeah,
really bad.
it wasn't a
South.
pleasant position, but it wasn't as bad as this.
Yeah.
And to get from here to there in pretty much 5 moves, maybe 7 moves, is quite remarkable.
Yeah, he could have played b5 and game goes on
Yep.
instead of... All right,
Yeah, he went
second-
A5.
He went a5, and now...
Which one do we take, a5 or c5?
I think the simplest is to go take everything on c5, go rook e1, force rook e7, take on a5, and at that point you start
the endgame,
quoting the evergreen story about Viktor Korchnoi. the one
Yes.
the one where he inquires whether his opponent speaks English.
Rook E1, the pin.
Yeah.
You're forced to defend, and then you go rook takes,
Yeah.
and you're threatening to capture everything. By the way, this guy's still alive.
It's still on h6, yeah.
So, of course,
I think it's one of those positions where, yeah, and the...
it's over. Gukesh said, okay, I've seen enough. This is, and for Maxi,
31 moves.
you got to
Yeah, Max
salute.